David Fincher is back with Mank on Netflix, but today we are talking about his entire filmography. This is the David Fincher tier list. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. David Fincher, he's a pretty good director, one of my absolute favorites, and today we are going to rank his movies first. We're going to place them on their specific tiers, and that will tell you guys how much I personally enjoy these movies. Again, it's all personal, so not everyone's going to agree, but I need you in the comments down below. What is your favorite Fincher film? What tiers would you place these movies on? And obviously, the reason we are doing this is because Mank is now on Netflix. I will be saving that one until the end, and then obviously, after everything is over, you get my final ranking. Going to try to speed this up since we've done it before, but I just love talking me some David Fincher because I'm such a big fan of his top 3 directors working right now. But let's start with one of the all-time classics. This is Fight Club. I believe Fight Club is one of the best movies under Fincher's banner. But it's also one of my all-time favorites, and because of that, we have to add the all-time row and go ahead and place Fight Club at the top because this movie is so iconic. I just think this film is unlike any other, right? I've never had an experience like I had watching Fight Club for the first time, and whether it's a rewatch, whether it's studying the performances from Edward Norton, who is fantastic, to Brad Pitt, who just took it to another level in his career with David Fincher, this and Seven. Obviously, the movie is an all-timer, I think, for a lot of people, so I'm not going to stand out putting it in this category. But when you look at the style, and David Fincher's style in general, this one not only stands out as different, but it encapsulates everything we love about him. He's really good at bringing actors together and allowing them to deliver dialogue in a compelling way. And from the narration to the voiceover to trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And then when we get that reveal, and I guess I won't say what it is, just in case you've never seen it, it is just remarkable. And watching it with my wife recently, she got that reveal for the first time. She was blown away. I was happy that she was blown away. And I think most people are in agreement that this movie is at least good to great. But for me personally, it is one of my all-time favorite films in my top 30, and for good reason. Then from the top of his filmography to maybe the bottom, we'll just have to see. But Alien 3 was just one of those films that unfortunately David Fincher, I don't want to say wasn't ready for. There was a massive disconnect between he and the studio, and falling into the blockbuster cliched genre, which is something that I wouldn't look at David Fincher now and say, yeah, he's the perfect guy for a blockbuster, but apparently back then, that's the way it looked, at least. But this film is one of my least favorite movies in the Alien franchise. Not my least favorite. There have been worse films, and if you go through the director's cut and what he intended on this film being, you can see it. There is somewhat of a clear vision there once you do the research, but watching this movie for the first time was extremely disappointing, but going back and seeing it for a second time made me realize all of the missed opportunities and all of the strange character decisions straying away from what we know and loved about the first 2 films. So Alien 3, if you're a fan of that franchise, I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on this film. I've seen some people that thoroughly enjoy it. I do like the director's cut better, but in terms of Alien 3, not bad, not awful, just kind of meh. Then we have The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, another great David Fincher movie. I say another because there may be more movies on the great tier for me. And while I did not fall head over heels for this movie the first time I watched it, it's one of those that I started to appreciate more as time moved on. And one of those that you almost separate from some of his other movies because he always stays in one particular territory. And this strays away from that in a strange way. It's all about a man after this woman who's been missing for 40 years, and he is accompanied by Rooney Mara, who plays Elizabeth, and Rooney Mara is so outstanding in this movie, and we know the story behind The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. We know they tried to reboot the franchise in a way that didn't work quite as well, and many people actually prefer the original 2009 film. Now, I actually haven't seen that movie. All I have seen is the remake of sorts, but you have David Fincher behind the camera at the helm, and he does such a good job of taking us on this gloomy, dark, intense thriller that features plenty of slower moments, but those are the intricate moments that allow us to relate with these characters. I also thought Daniel Craig was fantastic in this film. So it's definitely not my favorite David Fincher movie, but it's one that I've definitely come to appreciate more with time. Now, a movie that I may be actually a bit higher on than everyone else is Gone Girl. Gone Girl goes on the awesome tier for me. I think there are a few reasons why I have this so high on my David Fincher ranking. I just believe it does so much service to its actors. Rosamund Pike, who embodies this character, this mysterious figure. We're with Ben Affleck every step of the way trying to figure out, okay, what actually happened when his wife disappeared? Is it him? Is it her? Is it those around the situation? Neil Patrick Harris also giving a really good performance. I think everyone in the movie is really solid, but the way that the film unfolds is one that I think some just don't prefer maybe as much as David Fincher's other films, but I, on the other hand, feel like this is one of the most interesting, intriguing, and compelling stories that he's done, and it made me look at Ben Affleck and say, and I've always known he was a good actor, but after this film I said, this guy is even better than I thought he was. So overall, I think Gone Girl is higher up maybe for me than others, but I just love the movie so much. And then we have Panic Room, 2002, before David Fincher really took off as the David Fincher that we know now, but I still think this is a good movie. I think this one is one of the most upbeat, intense, entertaining movies that he has done under his entire banner. I love the way that he executes tension within this film. I think Jodie Foster gives an awesome performance. And she plays this woman and her daughter who take refuge in this new house, obviously in a safe room. But then you have these three guys who break in and they're searching for this fortune. And it is just as simple as it could possibly be, but executed in a way. See, with Fincher's movies, it's less so about the destination and more so about the journey. And I think this film is the ultimate example of that. The journey is awesome. The destination may be a bit predictable, and that keeps it from being up on, say, the great tier. But I still think Panic Room is a lot of fun. And I wish I had one in my house, especially in 2020. Let's move on. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, one that I may be a bit lower on than many, many others. Even my wife, who looks at me every time I watch this movie and says, why don't you love this as much as I do? And I say, honey, unfortunately, I just think it's okay. And that's not bad. That's still okay. I think it's the fascination with this story, the fact that this man is aging backwards and Brad Pitt gives such a compelling performance. But and that's what keeps me on the okay tier. I'm really invested in that. But the overall story for me was just so odd. And I know I'm losing some people with this because so many love Benjamin Button. I wasn't as invested as I wanted to be. And every single time I watch it, I just don't feel that connection. And it's not necessarily what he's going through. It's more so, and I hate to say this for Fincher, more so the execution of this film, the strange effects at points, the strangeness of the story as a whole. To relate to a movie and to see it in the light that others see it, you have to feel something. And I felt a little bit at times. There are so many emotional moments in this film that are awesome. But the overall story just didn't work for me. And we're all going to have those films. I'm sure everyone watching has a movie in David Fincher's repertoire that you just don't relate to. Maybe that's Mank. Maybe that's Zodiac. Maybe that's Benjamin Button. For me, that's the film that I just don't quite click with as everyone else does. And I've tried, trust me. Now, Zodiac is tough, and here's what I'll say. I've only seen Zodiac twice, and I know this is the film that everyone talks about being Fincher's most underrated movie, and I completely understand where they're coming from. And the second time, it did get a bit better. I wasn't all there on Zodiac the first time, and I think my biggest knock towards it was I felt the length of the movie. It was just too long for me. I love the cast, I love the story, I love the progression, but there were just a few things that I didn't love. And then I saw it again, and I liked it more. I don't know if I'm ready to put it on the awesome tier just yet, and I'll admit I should have rewatched it in an effort to maybe move it higher on this tier list. I am going to place it on the great tier. I may not have been there my first watch. I am there now. I do not know where it's going to end up on my list after a third watch, but all I know is that, again, the way that the actors are embracing these characters, from Robert Downey Jr. to Mark Ruffalo to Jake Gyllenhaal, who is just the best in this story, It is an outstanding story with outstanding progression, and the investigation of the Zodiac killer is one of the most interesting stories that Fincher could tell, because the serial killer is one who, taunted police and terrorized the Bay Area for quite a long time. And if you think about it, it is a tragic true story, and this is what Fincher thrives in, man. He thrives in a show like Mindhunter, which reminds me of Zodiac, which reminds me of Seven, and it is one of the more compelling stories he's told. I do believe it's a little long in the tooth, but that is really the only massive knock I have on not putting it on the awesome tier. So I think I may get there maybe on my next watch, but as of right now, after seeing it twice, I have to put it on the great tier. But it's still the great tier. I mean, that's a really good, it's better than the good tier. It's a great tier. But for me, 7 is the OG. 7 is where Fincher got all of the qualities that I love from him today. When he tells a great thrilling story, a dramatic tale, whether it's based on a killer or whether it's based on Mindhunter. Killers, gosh, I wish I could put Mindhunter on this tier list, but it's not a movie. 7 is the OG. Morgan Freeman's performance is fantastic. I already mentioned Brad Pitt just thriving in the role. The twist, what's in the box, it is iconic for a reason, and it's one of the more subtle tales that he tells. It deals with quite a bit, actually. Morgan Freeman's character, the fact that he is on his final case, he's trying to figure out if he made all of the right decisions, the fact that he's trying to keep Brad Pitt's character from making the wrong decision, learning from his own mistakes, and that's a character study. And that's what I love seeing, especially in a Fincher film, a master of characterization. And that's probably the best quality he has, is allowing us to connect and feel. And I felt for Freeman's character. I felt for Pitt's character, especially in that third act. And because of all of those things, I'm not just going to put this on the awesome tier. I'm going to put 7 on the all-time tier. This is a phenomenal, top-notch, outstanding movie. One of my favorites. So a financial genius played by Michael Douglas receives a gift certificate to play a very unique game. This movie goes on the great tier because from that game comes one of the most intense and upbeat and crazy sequence of events you've ever seen. This is a movie unlike any other, and even though it's not perfect, I do believe it's one that showcased what Fincher was turning into, could inevitably become. You had Seven, you had the game, and I just love the nature of this story. It's so different. It is so different. This guy is caught up in all of these crazy events, and he makes mistakes, and he makes decisions that not only have consequences for him, but for everyone around him and the setup. It's such a strange thing to see. It's so strange seeing what Douglas's character has to go through, but his performance is great, and I just think Fincher nailed what he was going for with this movie, and it's not one that people often talk about as much. We're always talking about Seven and Fight Club and Social Network, but The Game, while maybe not on the level of the movies I just mentioned, is still outstanding in its own right, and I had a great time watching this, and I can't wait to see it again. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I've talked about Social Network so many times on this channel, so many times. Eisenberg's performance is perfect. The writing, maybe one of the best screenplays I've ever seen, and if you watch this film and you say, well, it may not be the most entertaining thing in the world, I understand, but you have to look a bit deeper. You have to look at how each character is brought to life and portrayed in a way that just feels so real. Seeing what Zuckerberg goes through, his mentality towards things, and he may not be the most relatable guy in the world, clearly, but within this movie, there's something about him that you're rooting for Facebook to become inevitably the Facebook that we know, and I think a lot of that has to do with the writing. Now, I've seen a few things, it may not be the most true interpretation of the story ever, but when I look at a movie like this, I just want the movie to be good. I just want it to be entertaining, and from start to finish, this is one of the most technically well-executed movies of the 2010s, obviously one of my favorite screenplays of all time. I think the score is top-notch, and you look for a well-rounded movie when you look at a director like David Fincher, and this movie had everything. I'm still pissed off that it didn't win Best Picture, but you know what? It may be Austin's Best Picture because Social Network also goes on the all-time tier. Hey, look, it's Mank. It's the new David Fincher movie that I think everyone is psyched out of their mind for. Austin, did you love this movie? Well, if you saw my review, you know exactly how I feel about it, but I will talk about it for just a second. I wanted it to be an all-timer. It wasn't that. It wasn't even awesome for me, but it's still great. And I know you look at the movies above the movies on the great tier, and some people are going to think, well, that's not a good thing. We want it to be awesome. Great is still great. And Mank is great for a reason. It transports you back into the 1930s. It takes you on this journey of Herman J. Mankiewicz and how he found the screenplay for Citizen Kane deep down inside himself, whether it has to do with certain events that happened in his personal life, things that happened to him along the way, and dealing with what he's dealing with his alcoholism. It's a very different movie from David Fincher. This is not a thriller. This is not a hardcore mystery drama. It doesn't have the madness that we often see in his films. It's stripped down. It's kind of easy to soak in a way, but it's also one that you may have to adjust your brain to because it is filmed like it's from the 1930s. The screenplay captures that period in a way that may not appeal to everyone. This is probably one of the least audience-friendly David Fincher movies, but in terms of cinephiles, in terms of those that love Citizen Kane, and myself, who actually wrote an essay on Citizen Kane in college, so I'm very familiar seeing all of these different things and the effort that Fincher put into this to make this a great movie. I think it all paid off at the end of the day, but I don't expect everyone to feel the same way. So we see this list. This is not the final order, folks. I have to order these movies and tell you guys which one is my least and most favorites. Let's get into it. So clearly, number 11 is Alien 3. Number 10, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Number 9, Panic Room. What is number 8? I have to go with The Game is my 8th favorite Fincher film. And then The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo I will put at 7. This looks good, though. Mank is my 6th favorite David Fincher movie. And again, that seems low, but when you have a director this good, it's not all that bad of a thing. Number 5 is Zodiac, very close to being on the awesome tier for me, and I do think the movie is still outstanding in its own right, obviously. Next up is Gone Girl at the 4 spot. 3, 2, and 1. Has anything changed since my last tier list? At number 3, Barely, and I'm telling you guys, the next time I do this, it may be different, but the more I watch 7, the more I love 7, but right now it has to be number 3, followed by Fight Club at number 2, meaning The Social Network is definitively my favorite David Fincher film. So that is my list of the top David Fincher films. Again, this is all just personal preference. Not everyone's going to agree. Where would you place each of these movies? What is your favorite? Do you agree with me, disagree? This is your place and space to talk David Fincher. If you guys like these tier lists and you want to support this video, if you want to drop it a thumbs up, that would be awesome. And recommend what tier list should I do next. Leave all of those things in the comments. I appreciate your support on this video. It took a long time to make, but man, it was so much fun. Stay tuned. More lists to come in December, end of the year lists. They're being worked on. All right, I'll see you.